840 on WGBR, and Carol Bowden's here with Wayne County Commissioner Joe Daughtery. So how you guys doing today?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're doing great. Thank you, Bill. We're here with Commissioner Daughtery this morning to discuss the payroll issues that were brought to light since the startling July 16th meeting of the Board of Wayne County Commissioners. After an audit, some of the items that were revealed, and the audit was done by Nunn and Brashear, approximately 600 county employees were overpaid, 65 employees were underpaid, and as of the July 16th meeting, they had not been paid. Over $10,000 was paid to one employee who was retired. It took 3 months for departments to get the first payroll register, and this prevented department managers from monitoring their payroll for each department. Additional costs were incurred because the retirement system payments were not made. We know that there was over $58,000 and over $24,000, and we don't know if this was in penalties and interest, but we don't know the total amount because when asked, we were told to refer back to the meeting, but there's no concise number given. The retirement fund was not paid for 7 months from July through January, July of last year through January of this year. County Manager Lee Smith recalled saying to you that the overpayments were only a handful and the amount was around $200,000. He also recalls saying that it was just a glitch in the system. We do know that the amount is at least $500,000.
That's correct.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then we're going to let you have a few moments to tell us more.
Okay.
So the first thing, Joe, that I'm going to ask is you have said that Mr. Smith has told you numerous untruths. Were the untruths, as you called them, intentional or a lack of sound management?
Maybe both. Let me say this, Carol. As an elected official, all elected officials really rely upon the information provided by staff and others for them to make decisions. So we are just the decision makers. But you rely upon your county manager in this case and also other staff to give you that information. That information's got to be complete, accurate. It's got to be the entire truth. So the truth, all the truth, complete. And when you get erroneous information, you've heard the old story, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If I'm to make decisions based upon information given to me and it's wrong, then I may make the wrong decision. So, I don't know. I do not know whether it was an intentional thing or whether or not it was a matter of a cover-up. I don't know. All I know is it was erroneous information.
Can the county recover the overpayments, and if so, how?
I suppose that's the $500,000 question. Because a lot of these employees are not there any longer. Like you said, there was the $10,000 paid to a retired individual that was kept on the payroll. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be extremely difficult, and very likely if I had to give my guess right now, I would say the overwhelming majority of that will not be recovered.
Okay, and you have said that the true cost, and we touched on this a moment ago, is far greater than the $503,000 that we know of in overpayments because of the fees, penalties, and other costs related to the late payments to the retirement fund, as well as issues with the payroll system. We tried to find this number out. Do you know what the total cost is?
No.
Does anyone know what the total cost is?
Well, again, when on one hand I go months asking for questions, my frustration is the fact that if I turn to a manager, county manager, and I ask questions, I should get that information almost immediately. But I had to ask this county manager numerous times, many months, to finally get a response in regards to the overpayments. And then when it was finally given to me, I was sent a spreadsheet via email that indicated that it was $200,000. Well, that's fine, but I'm making a decision based upon $200,000 when it's $500,000. This fiasco of this Ceridian system indicates several issues. first issue is a lack of judgment. Why would you take a system that everybody knows payroll is the majority of our cost? Why would you implement that system without a phase-in? You would phase it in, one department at a time, to see what problems there would be so you can overcome those problems. But they implemented this countywide, all at one time. Secondly, they didn't even check to see or do any dry runs. They did not verify whether or not it was compatible with our type of pay, which that was a problem because you have flex overtime. Then after it was implemented, there were no reports for months. The county finance officer didn't even have access to it, did not have access to any of these reports. There were just so many flaws. Then after they determined it was a problem, then comes the cover-up. Oh, it's just glitches. I have been told, I can't tell you how many times, it's just a glitch. There's only a handful. I don't know how many fingers that Mr. Smith has, but I don't believe he has 600 of them.
And it was said in the meeting that a lot of the errors were attributed to key punch and not understanding
that is
the program itself.
And there's the next problem. So it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. So then you blame county employees, morale goes down because they knew it wasn't their problem. They didn't input that data. So it's just a multitude of problems that are there.
Let's go back to the meeting and talk about that day. Did you have support of some or all of the other commissioners to make your motion prior to doing so? And if you did, what happened?
Let me talk about that just a minute. You know, people arrive at a decision at different times. I had done extensive research on my own to validate the pattern, to establish a pattern.
Right.
You know, I'm a simple guy. I'm just an old country boy at heart. But I live by one simple rule, and that's this. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, and that makes a fool out of you and me. So I like to go back and verify information. I've arrived at that on my own. There have been discussions, there have been there are a lot of concerns that have been expressed individually by other commissioners. I just don't think they have arrived at the point that I have. But when I got that report, that audit report, and I was told it was $200,000 and very clearly it was $500,000, I'm sorry, it was the camel that broke, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I felt like action needed to be taken immediately.
And this problem now, in listening to the meeting, has been going on for over a year now, or right at a year now.
That's correct.
You told me that you wanted to tackle the problem right after the election, but not everyone was ready to do so. Yet when I talked to Mr. Mayo, he says that he and Mr. Keene had been on the issue since last July. How do you respond to that?
Well, you see, you have to go back and look at the other meetings. The prior board was misled. It isn't only this board. The prior board was misled. They were making decisions based upon information that was provided to them. So I can't blame the prior board that much because, again, you only act based upon the information provided to you. Now, Mr. Mayo and Mr. Keene were on the prior board, and they saw immediately, about September, October, they knew there was a problem. And they tried to get it addressed by the old board. We knew the problem existed when we walked in the door in December. We were told there was no solution. You could not return to the prior Jim's payroll system, that it was broken, you couldn't use it. Now, this is information coming to me directly from Lee Smith. And only after I contacted Jim's in Florida, only after I got them to acknowledge that we could return and welcome us back, did we actually make the change in January.
Okay, and I have 2 more final questions, and then we're going to let you talk. In your final questions to the board during the July 16th meeting, you said, if not now, when? If it was a $5 million problem, would that be enough to make a change? $1 million. Have any board members responded to that question since the meeting?
No. To be right honest with you, I was a little taken back because I felt like that they had arrived at that point. I would not have made that motion if I did not feel pretty comfortable that I placidly would get support for my motion. To have a 6-1 vote was a little shocking. You're kind of out there on a limb by yourself, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. I'm hoping they'll get additional information and we'll finally come to the conclusion that Wayne County can do better. We need to rely upon information that's accurate so we can make good decisions for our citizens.
Fair enough. And the final question might be the toughest, but have you spoken to Mr. Smith since the meeting?
No, I have not. And let me say this. A lot of people have taken this as it's a personal issue. It's not personal. As an elected official, you have to separate your liking of an individual to your duty as an elected official. I like Mr. Smith. I think he's a fine gentleman. I think in all he tries his best. Unfortunately, he's not giving accurate information. And, you really have to hold people accountable. You do. Mm-hmm. If not, then everything just gets out of kilter. But no, I haven't spoken with Mr. Smith. I intend to. I hope that relationship, even though strained, that we can work together while he is county manager.
That's kind of essential to your job.
Well, I think it is. But and hopefully he'll be extremely careful to make sure he's providing accurate information when requested. Carol, you hear it from the news media. You hear it from citizens. We hear it from, during the campaign, you'll hear it from just about every candidate. We want open, transparent. We want government accountable. We want efficient. We want to cut wasteful spending. We want to make sure that tax dollars are spent efficiently. And we want to hold our officials accountable. And we want you, Joe, Jack, or whoever, whatever your elected official are, when we elect you, we want you to look after us, to make sure that the tax dollars are spent wisely. And if you find a problem, you need to identify it and find a solution. And I look at this problem as that. I identified a problem, and I have identified a solution. Now, you may not like that solution, and you may think that that's harsh, but in the end, it is the actual, if you really analyze it, that is really the only solution that I can think of. So, don't shoot the messenger. It's easy to turn around and put your head in the sand and say, hey, we really didn't want to hear that. Well, unfortunately, my job is to make sure I let you know what the problems are and what I consider would be a solution. So that's kind of where I'm at. The other thing I want to do is encourage average citizens. I want them to be involved. I want them to go to the commissioner meetings. I want them to talk to their commissioners. I want them to see what has transpired. Because if you go on our recording, and thank goodness we have that, where you can actually go back to prior meetings, and you can pull it up, view it, and see the statements made by our county manager, and you say, well, he's got a point there. He did, in fact, say that. So it's not my word against his word. There's a recording there.
Well, and the emotions of the meeting and the issue at hand over the motion that you made has to be removed because, as you said, you're representing the taxpayers. The over $500,000 are tax dollars that the citizens in Wayne County should want a response as to why.
Well, and I don't probably have the time to get into it, but it's not the one issue. It's not the one issue. There are a number of other issues here involved. And, we'll see how it goes from there.
Joe, thank you so much for coming in and answering these questions, and we appreciate your time.
Well, look, I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to give a little bit more explanation. And, again, I encourage people to really get involved and watch what's going on as such. It's your government. Let's get involved.
All right, thanks, Joe. It's 8:55 on News Talk 1150 WGBR, and we'll be back right after this.